People in New Zealand do a lot of fishing because there's a lot of fish around, aren't there?
Good morning, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mikes on the TalkSport warm-up. It's Grand National Weekend, the Masters is on and we've got more Premier League football than you can shake a stick at. It all kicks off at White Hart Lane where Spurs take on Watford at 12:30. We'll bring you the team news, plus we'll be giving you our tips for the big race at Aintree. We're going to be hearing very shortly from the man Rupert Bell, who is of course doing the commentary live at 5:15. And we'll have a 1-minute moan as well. Lots to moan about too. 08717 22 33 44. You're listening to the Two Mikes with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on TalkSport. This is TalkSport. We are the Two Mikes. It is the warm-up, and I'm delighted to say on Grand National Weekend, it's time to say a very good morning to Mr. Mike. He knows the horses, Parry. How did you manage to get that one wrong, then?
I didn't get it wrong.
You did?
No, I didn't get it wrong.
Apparently you said Ruby Walsh was on your favourite horse.
Now, if you listen properly, you just said Ruby Walsh, a twice former winner of the Grand National, right?
Are you denying that you said Ruby Walsh was riding that horse?
Now, you've got to understand, I've been working on this race for months, right? And it's only in the last few days before the race is actually called, right, that these jockeys assign themselves to a particular horse. Of course, Ruby Walsh is not riding the horse that I said has got a great chance, One for Arthur.
One for Arthur.
That would be utterly ridiculous. Ruby Walsh is on pleasant company.
Yeah, but I've got to the bottom of why you thought Ruby Walsh was riding this horse. Not because of all the information that you've received from your many tipsters in the paddock.
Yes.
But because in certain of the ways of the layouts, the way that the layouts have been done, there is, in fact, one column which starts at the bottom with Bishop's Road. It goes up to Highland Lodge, up to O'Phalen's Boy, to Ballynaga, to One for Arthur, and to Pleasant Company.
Yes.
Now, if you read it wrong, you would be looking at One for Arthur with just above it Ruby Walsh's name, where it says 16-1. So, in fact, where they have put the jockey underneath the horse above, you've read it wrongly. The jockey above
that didn't
is above the horse. That's what happened.
No, that didn't fool me, honest to God. That would never fool me because I studied this race for ages. This is one of the great days.
And you are smarter than the average bear.
I am smarter than the average bear, and this is one of the great days in the British calendar. Not the British sporting calendar.
Why not?
The British calendar.
What?
Because it transcends sport. The Grand National transcends sport.
That's true, yeah.
Everybody's into it. I've been to the race about, I don't know, maybe 10 times, and I always had a thoroughly good day out. I would love to have gone this year, but the problem is I was working here. It would have been such a rush to get up there that although I'd have got there for the race, I would not have got there to enjoy the ambience of the course throughout the afternoon.
Well, judging by some of the pictures in the papers today, if you'd gone yesterday, you might have enjoyed something else.
Well, this is a disgrace, this is the annual disgrace.
This is your annual, let's try and be friendly to my old friends in the north, even though I've now moved to live in the south.
This is the annual disgrace where certain individual publications, which, I will remain nameless because I refuse to give credence to their title, will go up there and send a team of photographers and say, I'm not talking about the Sun at all. I'm talking about a
Daily Mail.
You said it, not me. But it seems that certain newspapers based in sort of Kensington and the posher areas of West London. I'm not naming any names. Send a team of photographers up there every year and say, let's take some pictures of all these Merseyside girls and women lying around on the grass and looking dishevelled and
drinking out of
bottles and all kind of stuff. They don't do that when Ascot's on.
They do, actually.
Royal Ascot is worse.
Excuse me, I think you'll find that they do. This is a myth. This started on Twitter yesterday. A load of people said to me, what do you think of your colleagues in the press having to go at all these lovely girls from Liverpool?
Exactly.
Why don't they do it to what happened to the girls in Ascot? They do it at Royal Ascot, and they also do it at Cheltenham, because when people get drunk and fall about, it makes for very good, generally good picture press coverage.
I think there's a quite unfair...
So you shouldn't perpetuate the myth that they don't do it in the south.
Hang on, I exposed this story years ago. I said, why is it that we go and take pictures of ladies who are in uncomfortable positions at Aintree, but we never do it at Ascot or, as you quite rightly say, Epsom, where often it's far worse because there's there's more excess there.
But they do. My point is they do.
They only do it because I've raised the issue in the past.
Rubbish.
Okay.
Why are you so full of yourself?
I'm not full of myself.
You really think that you were the person that made that happen?
I discovered that years ago and brought it to the attention of the world.
Absolutely incredible.
If the balance is now being corrected, then I'm delighted. It's down to me.
The paper whose name you don't wish to name, is got a big spread on pages 8 and 9 this morning, written by, and I like the way they've done this, right? They've done it by Bell Mooney.
Yes.
Underneath it says, who grew up in Liverpool.
Yeah.
Thereby proving that they're not at all
prejudiced
against
Liverpool. She doesn't say, from Liverpool, born in Liverpool, who grew up in Liverpool.
There.
Well, she go to university?
Well, she grew up in Liverpool. That usually means that she was raised there.
Yeah, well, I'd like a bit more information about that. It usually means she spent like a couple of summer holidays there with her auntie or something like that.
That doesn't mean that at all,
in Southport or something like that. But anyway.
In my Liverpool 50s childhood, she says, working women like my mother, grandmother and aunties dressed carefully, wanted to look neat but never to draw attention to themselves. So she obviously spent her childhood there.
Anyway.
Which is more than you did.
I see you came in this morning waving around your betting slip, so you've already decided,
I wasn't waving them around. I was simply showing them to somebody who asked me who I'd bet on, because unlike you, I have many responsibilities in life. I have to put bets on for a great number of people.
Do you?
You just have to put them on for yourself.
Crikey, I wouldn't trust you to put a bet on for me, mate. Well, you know less about horse racing than you do about.
Why don't you tell everybody what happened when we went to Windsor races?
Windsor races?
Everyone? Yeah,
can't remember.
You can't remember.
We
went to Windsor races at their invitation.
Been to hundreds of race meetings.
We spent never won any money. We spent a great deal of time having a lovely evening at the Windsor night races. Yes. I came away having won something on every single race, and you couldn't believe it. You got more and more angry as the night went on. So much so that you forgot to book us a cab to get out of there. Yeah. And I won about 600 quid, and you won the square root of minus 200.
What a load of nonsense.
I think you'll
honestly.
Find. Anyway, the way they've done it as well is they've tried to be as sympathetic as possible. I wish they didn't look so cheap and drink like sailors, but I love the swagger of the Aintree ladies, says Bellman.
Yeah.
So they're kind of damning them with faint praise.
Yeah,
and there is, I have to say, there are a couple of pictures which are pretty horrendous. Not least the one of the woman who appears to be covered from head to toe in tattoos.
Oh God, I can't stand that. That looks horrendous. I totally agree. But that would apply to any lady in any area of life. I think any lady who wears, not many clothes but has tattoos around her limbs, her arms and her legs is somebody I would never invite home to have a cup of tea with my mother. What
about this girl over here who's swigging out of a full bottle of champagne?
Well, that happens late on in the day sometimes.
Would you take her home to see your mother?
Well, yeah, probably would. I think she looks quite elegant, really. Yeah. The thing is that her mate has probably handed her the bottle while she's, doing something else, rummaging for something in a handbag or something like that. She just took a swig, so what? Those things happen when people go to race meetings.
As long as you're consistent in your thoughts and your beliefs and all the things that you say, then I'm more than happy for you to defend these women falling about absolutely blind drunk, bladderated to the nth degree.
Oh, something you would never do, of course.
Well, I've never been caught on camera doing it, whereas I think you have.
No.
All people have to do is go to Two Mites TV and they will see you staggering across the road in Borough Market many months ago.
Rubbish.
On film.
That was a year last Christmas, by the way, not many months ago.
Not many months ago.
And look, we've got to look at what else is going on today.
Do you not want to know what I've got on the Grand National? You see, you've got so little interest in anything outside of your own modest world.
Tell me.
I have backed, for your information, 3 horses.
Right.
One is called Highland Lodge.
Highland Lodge? Yeah. What price is that?
I think it's around about 40 to 1.
Ooh.
Cocktails at Dawn.
Cocktails at Dawn. I know why you've backed that. Well, that's what you do most days when you leave here. And that's why the podcast...
Actually not true.
That's why the world's favourite podcast, the Two Mites, is usually late.
I'm going to get them to have a Parry lie alarm that goes off every time you tell a lie. Rogue Angel is my final one, which I think is the smallest priced horse that I have.
Okay.
You can perhaps tell me
what's
the price
about 14, 16 or something, is it? Is it
I think it's something like that, yeah.
What's it called again?
Rogue Angel.
Rogue Angel, by my reckoning, is 22.
22, okay.
Yeah, so what were the others again? Highland Lodge is 28.
Yeah.
And the third one was... Cocktails at Dawn. Oh,
100 to 1.
66, between 66 and
100.
Well,
you can tell me because you do know more about horse racing than I do. They asked me in the bookies yesterday, do I want to take the price?
Yes.
And I did.
Yeah, we'll always do.
Do you?
Because
you don't take the price on the race itself.
Well, it depends how much faith you've got in your horses. I would always take the price.
I took the price yesterday.
Yeah, well, that's fine, because then you would have been told what the price is.
Right.
Whereas if you don't and it drifts one way or the other, you're either in for a bonus or you're going to get screwed and ripped off and not keeping an eye on things.
Well, that's the problem. Yeah. And if it drifted down, then you lose out. But it might drift up, in which case I've lost out already.
Yeah, it might drift up, but if it drifts off, it means it's less likely to win.
Yes, that's true. Or somebody heard something about the injury. We'll be talking to Rupert Bell shortly about all of that to find out
Rupert knows a bit about racing, let me tell you.
He certainly does. I've got some other picks as well, but they're not my personal picks. We've got to talk about the golf, of course, because there's some British golfers doing rather well up there at the top of the Masters.
Think Rory can still win it?
He's certainly in there with a chance.
I think he still can.
It's a very tight little list at the top. So, I mean, there's nobody. There's only about 10 or 15 players at the top of that.
Who did I tell you right before the?
What did I tell you?
Yeah. I'm telling you.
What did you tell me about what?
I'm telling you, I have just signed a new 4-year contract.
I liked your tweet yesterday, by the way.
Yeah.
Tell us what you said yesterday.
I said yesterday, Brendan Rodgers signs a new 4-year contract with Celtic. ... and effectively resigns from management at the top level for the foreseeable future, which some said was a bit harsh.
Did you then have to stand back for all the sort of abuse you were going to take from Celtic fans?
Well, funny enough, quite a lot of Celtic fans said, watch us in the Champions League, because obviously that's the only avenue where they can improve. I said,
to be
good
fair
luck
to Celtic, because they didn't get out of the Champions League group stage, but they did get a couple of draws, perhaps with teams who should have beaten them.
Yes.
So you'd say that maybe they're a little bit more resilient in the Champions League than
they didn't have a good Champions League.
Well, they didn't, but they had a couple of decent results. But the trouble is, a decent result for Celtic is holding Manchester City to a draw.
Yeah, of course it is.
That's the trouble. Whereas with when Neil Lennon got them through into the knockout stage, they were actually beating teams. Yeah. So they need to do that, don't they?
Yeah. In fairness, by the way, the Celtic board were absolutely right to do that, because of course they could see other clubs coming for Brendan Rodgers over the summer, and if he's contracted to them for 4 years, they're going to be able to push a much greater deal.
You've got to watch those secret meetings he holds in the Mersey, not the Mersey Tunnel,
in the Clyde Tunnel. That's right. Yeah, yeah, good place to have a meeting, isn't it? Yeah.
Talk Sport, we are the two mics on the warm-up. Of course, it's Grand National Day. We're going to be talking to Mr. Rupert Bell very, very shortly. Let me just read you a couple of quick tweets. How about this from someone who doesn't give a name? They texted in, Mike Graham must think every girl at Aintree is from Liverpool. Should ban the arrogant, snobby Daily Mail anyway. Yeah, that's the answer. Let's get some kind of, socialist republic going so that you can only have papers that you like, reporting on the things that you do. Of course, I don't think all the girls there are from Aintree or from Liverpool.
Well, they're from the Northwest.
A lot of them are from the Northwest. Many of them from Chester. Many of them are from Manchester.
I totally agree.
Many of them are from Wigan.
Totally
Many
agree.
of them from Preston. They might be from Leeds. Some of them might even be from London. Exactly. And Dee says this: I'm absolutely gutted to hear that my tattooed limbs preclude me from ever meeting Mother Porky. Is there anything left to live for?
No. I didn't say I'm against tattoos. I'm against ladies
you wouldn't take a lady with tattoos home, you said.
No, I wouldn't. Not if her arm looked like a sleeve, so to speak. You know what I mean? Which is apparently a tattoo that goes from the wrist to your shoulder, like a sleeve. Like a sleeve.
Yeah. That's why they call it that.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's talk to Rupert Bell.
Indeed.
Mr. Bell, how the devil are you? And where are you?
I'm in the press room at Aintree at the moment.
Excellent.
I will be moving later. And Mike, I think, I'm Mike, I know you've been in here.
Yes.
So I'm there, and then I'll move up to our commentary position for later on at the top of the grandstands, which is just the perfect place. It's I feel deeply privileged ever since I first watched this race to think that I'm allowed up the very top of the grandstand. I'm really honoured.
It is
tremendous
it's
stuff.
a perfect view
now,
indeed.
You've obviously survived Ladies' Day yesterday. How did you manage it?
It was the weather's just lovely, and the one great thing about British racing, we have all these fabulous festivals. Cheltenham is more for the purists, and it's sort of early March, so the weather's never going to be fantastic. Yeah. You've got Royal Ascot, which is all dress up and all that side of it, but this is just party time. This is the people of Merseyside loving a good party, and
Absolutely.
That's why it has to be celebrated, enjoyed, and let's not get serious about it. And if people do wear slightly the wrong clothing, who gives a monkeys?
Exactly.
I don't. And that's my approach to it.
I totally agree. Now, Rupert, as talking about the racing, because obviously that does form some part of the 3-day festival.
Well, some part of it, yes.
Am I right in thinking that actually you could never really nominate a favourite for the Grand National? It's such a long race. There are so many riders. There are so many obstacles in the way of every horse before it even gets round the first course that you're taking your luck on whatever horse you pick.
Well, you are, but that's why this race is, we're going something like 12-1 the field. This is a really open race this year. The ground is on the soft side of good. It will be run fast. It will be. I think that's why you could probably, wouldn't be a surprise if we saw a 40-1 winner. But I can't work out why Cocktails at Dawn's been backed by everybody. It's got no sort of form, yet people are latching onto Cocktails at Dawn.
got that one. It's a name, I think, isn't it?
It is the name, but and obviously it's a lovely day, and I think some people seem to probably having cocktails forget dawn 24 hours. It's cocktails at every.
Are you saying I've wasted my money, Rupert?
Yes.
Really?
Yes.
Oh
dear.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'm looking at this one here, which has been highlighted for me on Twitter. Roi de Franc, which the reason it's been highlighted is 66 to 1. It says worse record at Liverpool than Everton.
Ka-ching. It's got young Jack. Yeah, he's got Jack Kennedy on board, who's 17 years of age. And he's a brilliantly talented young rider. And this is his first ride in the race. But Roi de Francs, how do you pronounce it anyway? Could have a chance. But I think may have got too much weight. But he's still a decent prospect. So if you're on that one, you've got more chance than cocktails at dawn.
Now, what about one for Arthur? This is my big
the
hope,
one that
Rupert.
Ruby Walsh was going to be on.
No. Ruby Walsh is on Pleasant Company, you oaf. But what do you think about one for Arthur?
Scotland haven't won the race since 1979.
That's right.
I think this has got a really good chance, but I think the ground may be against it. Who's having a cocktail in the studio? This one is, I think, probably won't like the good ground, but he has, on paper, a really good chance. He's got a jockey riding the race for the first time, Derek Fox. Lucinda Russell trains the horse and is the partner of Peter Scudamore. He never rode the winner of the race. His father did, and his son Tom is riding Vieux Lion Rouge in the race as
Excellent.
well.
The other two I've got on me this week are Rogue Angel and Highland Lodge. What do you make of them?
Rogue Angel, yes, good, solid. Not this season, hasn't been in great form. So I'm not overly optimistic, judging by the form of the horse this season.
Okay.
And the other one was Highland Lodge. Experienced, will get round, but whether he's got the speed to win it, I'm not sure. He's 11 years of age, but that's not a negative, but I just don't think he might have the speed to keep with the horses here.
Yeah, you really put a big downer on my bets. I tell you.
Sorry, Mike.
Now I can.
Rupert's an honest man.
I have other members of my family on whom I have to survive, who dependent on me, shall we say?
Dependent on you? No chance.
And there's a couple of how many dependents have you got? Oh, none. I remember now.
Yeah, but I don't banish my children and send them to America when I get fed up with them.
One of my children's sitting next door, so I would thank you for not being quite so rude and disgusting while he's sitting there.
Sorry, that's one of the ones you kept, was it?
That's one of the ones I kept, yes.
Yeah, sorry,
he's looking for a slap, Rupert. He's going to get one. How about the Young Master and Perfect Candidate?
Perfect Candidates, all right. Paddy Brennan on board, but again, I think there's maybe too much weight on that one. And what was the other one you just said?
Perfect Candidate.
A Perfect Candidate was saying Young Master was the other one, wasn't it? Sam Whaley-Cohn, really good amateur jockey, loves very good round these fences, and again on his day, he's not a bad horse. So Young Master again, I can see that running a bigger race than some of the others of your choices. Have we got many left now?
I've just got two more: Stellar Notion and Levaticane.
What is Rupert? Your personal sort of tipster?
I'm just asking him.
Levaticane, no chance. Stellar Notion, on the face of it, no chance.
Yeah, really sorry to bore you to death with all those all those also-ran nags. Rupert, I wanted to ask you this. We saw some pictures yesterday of the ladies of Merseyside having a thrash and all kind of stuff, and I reckon those pictures were taken round about sort of 5 o'clock at the end of the day. Yeah. Is this race now run too late? Because a lot of people are going to go home from this meeting today and not remember seeing the race.
It's done for a wider audience purposes, yes. And when you think the gates are open by
10:30,
there is a chance that one or two people might be over-refreshed.
Yes.
But that is the way the world is. I think you've just got to learn to pace yourself. The sun is out.
Yes, we're good at that. We're good at that here at TalkSport.
Are you sure, Mike?
No, well, go on, move on.
Porky's been carried out of more racing venues than any other.
Your only concern is if you were here, you knew you wouldn't be able to remember the race, Mike.
No, why are you besmirching my character like that, Rupert?
Trust me, Rupert, you won't be able to remember it down here either.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm reporting facts here. I don't do fake news. I tell the truth as it happens. So
it's true. Now, just before we let you go, before we move away from the Grand National, what about the golf? Because that is obviously your second interest for us here at TalkSport. Do you fancy any of the Brits for the final day?
Well, sadly, there were 11 Englishmen in it. I think only 5 have made it through, and unfortunately, one of them who didn't get through is Danny Willett, who's been in wretched form, and he started with an 8 yesterday. Justin Rose, obviously, has got to be right in the mix, but I dearly would love to see Sergio find a way of winning.
I'd like to see Rory win.
Well, I would, but in a way, Sergio has been around for so long. You think, when's he going to finally win a major? He's in the mix. He played well yesterday in difficult conditions. So of the Europeans, it's Sergio. And then please take note of a new guy who's making such an impact on the game, a guy called John Ram. This is a Spanish player who plays a lot in America, but he's got bucket loads of talent.
Right.
Talk Sport, we are the two mics on the warm-up. A massive day of sport. We've got Tottenham coming up at 12:30 playing Watford at White Hart Lane. Grand National, of course, later on. The Masters gets underway in a few hours' time as well. The final 2 rounds, of course. A couple of interesting possible angles for UK golfers. And I've had this, I don't wish to be unkind, but I don't know what you make of this. This is from Dodge, who sent us a tweet a little bit earlier on.
Right.
It's a story that he's picked out of one of the newspapers this morning.
Yes.
And he says, and I can't read exactly the words that he's put, but he says, looks like Paul Breen-Turner has upset someone. They've cut his rope, as discussed a few weeks ago. And here's the story that he then points us to, right?
Yes.
A British sailor drifted 110 miles in his sleep after his boat broke free from its anchor.
Wow.
The unnamed 65-year-old had moored his yacht in Marbella in Spain before bedding down. He awoke to find he was heading for a beach he did not recognise and sounded his siren. Firemen rescued him and said he was in the Spanish port of Cadiz. The sailor, who had floated past Gibraltar and up the coast towards Portugal, went to a hotel while cops watched his yacht.
Watched his yacht. And who is this man? Do we know?
We don't have a name, but the yacht is called Miss Brenner. I'm sure it's not Paul Breen-Turner.
Well, it sounds like the sort of thing Paul Breen-Turner would get himself involved in, to be honest. But
to be honest, he fell asleep. Yeah. I mean, there's no suggestion that there was blooderation involved.
I
he fell
bet
asleep
there was.
and woke up in Cadiz, basically.
Yes, that's right, yeah. It's like,
so he's gone all the way round the southwest coast of Spain.
It wasn't unknown for people in Fleet Street in its heyday to go out on a session, which might then last more than a day and a half or something like that.
Yeah.
And on one occasion, one of our guys did come out with us, wandered off in the night, and woke up in a tulip field in Holland.
A tulip
These
field,
sort of
very
things
nice.
happen. Yeah. He somehow got himself onto a ferry and worked in the tulip. But anyway, there you go.
Was it not the reason why what used to be called company credit cards were, or company air cards, I think they were?
Yes.
I think you might have had one in your time where you basically just turned up and could put the card down and get a flight to anywhere.
Well,
the reason that was done away with, because there was one particular guy who flew off to Brazil and refused to come back and just kept going.
I don't know. A couple of them flew to LA occasionally and said that they were interviewing people in Hollywood and all that kind of stuff, which never happened, but these successes did happen. Exactly. Now then, I want to talk about an old colleague and friend of TalkSport. It is Brian Moore, who, of course, is a hugely distinguished rugby player. And I think he played for England 66 times, 64?
I'm not sure 65? How many caps he had, but he was a legendary player.
Legendary player, and then turned his hand. He was a qualified solicitor to start off with, then he became a rugby player, and then turned his hand to working in radio and writing newspaper columns.
And of course, he is the voice very much of rugby commentary on the BBC.
Of course he is. And we wanted to just send our best wishes, because Brian has been tweeting out overnight and this morning to say that he's had a bit of a heart problem. I don't know if we describe it as a heart attack.
Well, he said he has suffered a heart attack.
Suffered a heart attack, and he's thanking the staff at St George's Hospital in South London, in Tooting. Is it in Tooting? I think, it is in Tooting.
You're the hospital expert.
Yes, well, that's right.
You know where every hospital in the southeast of England is, don't you?
Well, nearly.
I remember there was a time when you weren't allowed to travel more than 30 miles from the nearest hospital.
Well, that's true, actually. On one occasion, I had to be within that sort of range because I was so critically ill. Yeah. But I fought through it like everything else in my life. I recovered,
Well, let's hope that Brian has exactly the same rate of recovery as you.
Indeed, and I'm sure he is, because he sent out another tweet in the last hour or two, so he's obviously compos mentis, which is a great thing.
Which also shows that he's still retained his sense of humour, because his second tweet says this: I'm trying to work out whether nearly 5,000 likes over the news that I've had a heart attack is sympathy or schadenfreude.
or a bit of, what will happen next time type
I have to say,
reflection.
looking down his Twitter feed as well, the people who are wishing him all the best is like a who's who of royalty of British sport.
It certainly is.
So it shows you in what sort of high regard Brian is held.
It certainly is.
Top man.
I should imagine he's in a private room.
Big fan of the two mics as well.
Well, we're a big fan of his as well. I remember when I first went in, they put you in a private room initially because they're not sure how ill you're going to be, or you are. And
who are you?
Who are you? And then you get wired up to a lot of machines, and it's actually like being in prison then, because there's no way you can get out of your bed even if you wanted to, and all that
you,
kind of
course,
stuff.
managed to get sort of nefarious substances delivered to you, though, didn't you? Despite the fact that you were on your deathbed.
What do you mean nefarious?
Well,
substances?
you managed to get sort of alcohol delivered to you.
Oh,
you
no,
Phones
never.
brought in, you managed to get TVs.
No, never to that extent.
You told me that you managed to get the local sort of cab drivers to deliver anything you wanted.
I did, but I never included alcohol. Do you think I'd be as stupid as to consume alcohol when my life was hanging by a thread?
What were you sending out for? Contraband Jaffa cakes?
Only 13% of my heart was working. Do you think I would test it with alcohol? Absolute nonsense. Yeah. The one thing I did manage to get, bearing in mind that it's the Grand National today, was I got a local company to bring me a television and set it up.
And so you managed to make some bets, I dare say?
Yeah, because then I could watch the afternoon racing, and I had a...
This is all while being terminally ill.
Yes, that's right.
Words.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I had a card
a load of old rubbish
for an account, and I was able to do that. But anyway...
How about this from Martin, who was listening to you
just to say to Brian, get well soon, pal.
Yeah, absolutely. Get well soon, mate, and all the best to you. Martin says this, Porky reckons he's a gambling expert now. He's chomping at the bit to interrupt and interject when Dom was on. Yeah. Very true.
No, not at all. Dom is an expert. I mean, he's a professional.
I'm sure he'll be very grateful for your...
In the gambling industry. I was rather more concerned about the way that you literally commandeered every minute. Yes,
literally.
Commandeered every minute of Rupert Bell's time.
Yeah.
Not to tell us about what was happening at Aintree, not to tell us about the form of the horses.
People are interested in the form of the horses.
But just to get a direct and absolutely personal lowdown on the four... hapless animals that you've chosen in the race today, all of which he said are rubbish.
No, actually, that's not true. The three that I've chosen, one of them has got a pretty good chance. I was also trying to get the two horses that I've got for members of my family.
Yes.
Because they would like to know as well how big their chances are. How about this from Terry? If Porky was in the race, the form guide would describe him as this: past his best, lacks heart, and carrying too much weight.
It's a bit harsh, isn't it?
That's the tweet of the day, Terry.
I've had quite a lot, and I mean, by quite a lot, I mean, you're talking about 3-4 figures here, of people wanting to know exactly where I'm putting my money. Now, I would never, ever advise anybody to follow me as a punter in horse racing. So I am quite happy to put out a list of the horses I'm betting on, but under no circumstances...
I thought you were betting on all of the ones where the jockeys were wearing blue.
Well, there's more than 10 horses wearing blue, so
how
I've got
many
to
are you doing?
a bit selective.
Oh, right.
I'm going to be 10.
Okay.
Just
you're going to put 10 horses?
Yes, I'm going to back 10 horses, yeah.
That's a quarter of the field.
That is right, yes. And I will certainly make that public. I haven't got a problem with that, but under no circumstances am I recommending or advising you to follow me under any circumstances, because I do have frailties when it comes to the form on horses. Now, I want to tell you about a chap.
There's a couple of great tweets I'm going to read. Ryan says this, never mind about only being 30 miles away from a hospital. Now Porky has to be within half an hour of a pub.
Half an hour?
Half an hour.
What do you mean?
I know.
3 minutes
You're very rarely that far away from one.
Absolutely, yeah.
And this one from Parker. Are we supposed to unremember stories that Porky has told us before?
Yeah.
He told us he snuck out to the pub from the hospital, which is true.
Well, I did actually on one occasion when I was feeling desperate, but I mean, that's another story, and I wasn't critically ill at the time. Listen, have you ever heard of a bloke called Ben Cummins?
Ben Cummins? No,
this
I don't
think so. Got to be the maddest man in Britain.
I don't think so.
This is a guy who used to be a former university lecturer. He suddenly got the bug about, saving the world and all that.
Oh, yeah.
So he built...
an eco-warrior.
Eco-warrior. He built a barge, stroke boat, without an engine. And so everybody said to him, well, how are you going to propel this then? He said, I'm going to pull it. So he spent the last 5 years pulling this boat, I'm not joking, on canals from Liverpool to Riddleston in West Yorkshire.
Well, I suppose the original barges used to be pulled by horses, didn't
they?
Exactly. Hence the tow paths.
Exactly, and they used to, when they went through a low tunnel, they used to get a plank, believe it or not, lie on the plank and use their legs on the roof of the tunnel to get through.
In fact, there are some parts of the canal
you still do it.
Superstructure that you still have to do
it. But anyway, the point of this story is, this guy is now so committed to this job, and he literally pulls this, literally again, there you go. He actually pulls this thing around with a bit of rope.
Right.
It's taken him 5 years to get from Liverpool to Riddleston, West Yorkshire. That now puts him on the network, and he has a schedule. And his schedule for the boat, which is made of recycled materials, is that he will pull it to London by 2037.
2037?
2037.
So you're talking 20 years from now. So he's going to be pulling this thing for 20 years?
For 20 years, the next 20 years.
And how old is this guy?
43.
So he's going to be 63 when he gets to London.
Yeah, and he's going
to... What's he going to do then? Go back?
I've no idea. His life will be spent...
Well, here's a plank.
His life, I'm not joking, will be spent pulling this boat around canals to get it to London as a presumably, I'm assuming, it's his protest against waste in the world because it is made of recycled materials.
What an idiot.
And it has no engine. Even if he's feeling a bit tired and a bit knackered one day, nowhere to go. He just has to, sit on the riverbank or sit on his boat or something.
I mean, the last of the great British eccentrics, this guy sounds like.
Well, not only that, but I mean, that is a worse deal on a boat even than Paul Breen Turner, isn't it? Who lives on a sort of floating bedsit, somewhere around the Mediterranean.
No, I think he would categorise it as a 40-foot yacht, I suppose.
Well, yeah.
I was going to say launch, but it's a yacht, isn't it?
40 feet is 10 paces.
I know,
about,
it's not
right?
much. It's not much.
And that is not a huge area.
I was on a 65-footer in the Caribbean.
Yeah, I've been on about that size with 3 or 4 ensuite cabins.
That's right.
Yes, that's right.
We had, I think, 7 people on that.
Oh, that's right, that sort of thing.
Just about okay. But, I mean, if you're on a 40-footer, I suppose if you're
the one you were on was okay for a couple of days.
Well, we had it for a week, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Old Breen Turner lives on this hovelling sort of bedsit type,
it's a bit harsh.
flea-ridden or flea-bitten type.
Oh, no, he's our man keeping an eye on Gibraltar.
Oh, yeah, he is, actually. Yeah, send him in if it gets rough. That's what I say. The Royal Navy can't do it anymore, but Paul Breen Turner can.
He can. Defend the rock.
So when I hear about the hole in the sky, salt water wells in my eyes. We climb the highest mountain, we'll make the desert bloom. We're so ingenious we can walk on the moon. But when I hear of how the forest has
This is not the man who must not be named, is it?
Well, it's not. It's his son, actually.
Sounds like him, though, doesn't it?
Yeah, he does.
He's got a very similar singing voice.
Yeah, I think he made about 2 records, Julian Lennon.
Yeah.
You've got to remember, he was 16 when his father died.
Yes.
And his father was the biggest rock star in the world. And all of a sudden, somebody woke him up and said, your father's been cut down in a hail of bullets in New York. He was a father...
Well, let's hope they were slightly more sympathetic
Sure,
with that.
sure. But,
yeah, hello, your father's been cut down in a hail of bullets. It's not really normally what the emergency services say.
Well, no, but I mean, he lived with his mother, Cynthia, in North Wales.
Right.
And she would have to have broken the news to him, although, John Lennon hadn't been around a lot when Julian was growing up. And in fact, in the last 7 years of his life, John Lennon never left New York.
Right.
And Julian lived in this country with his mother. But he's 53 years out of age today,
isn't it?
which is amazing to think.
You still think of him as a relatively young man. I don't know why.
Of course you do. But I think in the end, I don't know. I've never spoken to him, but I've spoken to people, in the music industry. In the end, he decided that how was he ever going to compare, how was he ever going to match anything his father ever did? So he decided not to be a musician.
Well,
because
he made, according to the information I've got here, I think he made about 5 albums, 6 albums.
Yes, he did, yeah.
From 1984 to 2011.
Yeah.
So he kind of tinkered around with it.
Oh, he had 2 or 3 singles.
I mean, unlike, I suppose, many people who struggle in the music business, he wouldn't have any trouble getting a studio time or an album
none whatsoever.
Or getting any PR done by a record company,
But he knew that everything he ever did would be compared to what his father did. And as his father was the most prolific, man in music forever. I'll tell you a little story about him, right?
I don't know if that would stop me, though. I mean, for example, if your father was... Yeah, but we've seen that documentary that Scorsese did on George Harrison. And if, and his son is a guitarist, and you see him playing various roles and
that's right.
making various bits of sort of studio music and all that. I mean, first of all, I suppose you wouldn't need to do anything because you're so wealthy.
Yeah.
I don't know that you'd be that worried
about
trying to be better than your dad.
He had a decades-long battle with Yoko Ono over John Lennon's estate, which is massive now. I mean, £750 million, But all that went on. But I'll tell you just a small story.
Well, we haven't got a lot of time. Hold on to it.
Yeah, I'll hold on to it. I'll tell you later. Very good idea.
A very important woman from the Sunday Times. Very important person from the Sunday Times. She's the editorial director of the Sunday Times, I'll have you know.
A big shot.
Eleanor, very, very good morning. Very good afternoon to you, I should say.
Yeah, hello. Nice to hear you all.
Hi, very nice of you to join us. Now we're going to start off with a slight moan, actually, because we were very delighted to see our names in lights in the Sunday Times last weekend in the culture section by one Roland White, who we know is a man who likes a bit of whimsy. But he's listed us as one of his 5 worst radio shows of all time.
I would say that was a compliment.
Well, I thought so. I thought on the grounds that any publicity is good publicity, particularly when one of the other shows that he doesn't like very much is Thought for the Day. So, we're in good company.
I think you were probably a bit more jolly than Thought for the Day.
Well,
I'd like to think so.
We would certainly hope so. Eleanor, you've got a raft of great stories this week. One of them that really leapt out off the page to me is Buzz Aldrin. I've been fascinated with Buzz Aldrin since the time I found that he's the only astronaut who, when asked to go outside of his spaceship, his pulse and heartbeat went down, not up.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool customer. On the cover of the Sunday Times magazine tomorrow, which is the thing that I edit, we've got an interview with Buzz Aldrin and two of the others, Charlie Duke and Hanson Schmidt. And there are very few of the moonwalkers still left alive. Lots of them came to kind of quite sticky end. There's depression, alcoholism. There really aren't very many of them still left. And so it's quite rare to get three of them to talk. Our journalist Brian Appleyard talks to them. And Buzz Aldrin is particularly really doesn't do anything and is quite kind of notoriously reclusive about this kind of thing. But we've got a really interesting interview with him all about how he didn't actually want to be on the first moon mission. He much preferred being on the second one because he thought he'd get more time to be kind of outside on the moon. And really interesting about kind of what it was like to kind of look back at the Earth and the talcum powderness of the dust on the surface. And of course he talks about how his first words there were magnificent desolation because it just felt kind of so weird. There was no life. It doesn't sound like a very hospitable place.
Yeah. And do they talk about at all the kind of I suppose, disappointment a lot of people in the space program feel that was done such a long time ago and we haven't really, despite the space station and despite all the probes that have gone out to various places, the sort of manned missions haven't really gone anywhere, have they?
He says, this is 50 years ago. It'll be 50 years in 2019 since man first stepped on the moon. And he said that back then he had a whole, because he's also a good scientist, so he had a whole idea about something called cycling orbits, which was how you could kind of circle a space station between the kind of Earth and Mars so that you could do it much quicker. You'd have to have blasted someone up to get on it before they could go there. But they'd worked it out. And so he's absolutely thrilled that Trump has said that he's going to reignite the kind of NASA mission to try and get a man on Mars. But they're saying, well, why didn't we go on doing this 50 years ago? I think they all feel really cross that there was such a kind of hiatus. And they obviously hate the idea that it's the Russians now who have to help the Americans get into space.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it? Eleanor, also another household name for different reasons, Andrew Lloyd Webber. We've just been talking about John Lennon, but hardly a day goes by when you don't hum or hear an Andrew Lloyd Webber tune.
I know. Well, he's very much been the kind of background soundtrack to all of our lives, whether we kind of wanted him to be or not. We all did Joseph with his Technicolor Dreamcoat at school, Phantom of the Opera, and we've got a rather interesting interview with him. He's a weird figure, Andrew Lloyd Webber, because he should be a bit of a national treasure. At the moment, he's got 4 simultaneous musicals on Broadway, massively successful. Phantom of the Opera by itself has taken more money than the first 6 Star Wars films.
Golly.
That is,
it is incredible.
That is a massive achievement, and yet he doesn't really seem to be connected. And our interview says it's because he's not particularly cool, but that actually we should maybe reassess him because he's done a lot of great stuff.
I mean, he was very cool when he first started writing West End hits. He used to wear an Afghan coat, didn't he? Him and Tim Rice with the Terrible Twins and all that kind of stuff. And
but he's like obsessed by Victorian kind of pre-Raphaelite art and
buying theatres.
Really
and he's a bit of a geek in the end, isn't he? I think that's why.
That's a bit harsh, isn't it?
No, I mean that.
He's a bit of a geek.
As a descriptive way that you would describe him, he's a geek. He is.
He's a bit of a geek, exactly. He doesn't try to be cool. He's a Tory peer, all those kind of things. But actually, maybe it's time we all reappraised Andrew Lloyd Webber. So that's what our guy's saying. And it's interesting that in America, he's really lauded as one of the greats.
He is.
And here, everyone's a bit shifty about him. So we're saying, come on, let's give Andrew Lloyd Webber a chance.
It's possibly that great. He's so successful thing that people don't really like. They feel a bit uncomfortable in his presence.
That's right.
Now, what about the Grand National? It's the great race of the year. Even those people. Even when I was a kid, my dad, who didn't bet on anything, used to bet on the Grand National. Everybody's got a story. Have you got something?
Well, I've always loved it. In my family, we always used to have a massive sweepstake, and at the Sunday Times, we have a big sweepstake in the office, which always gets really heated, and it's usually kind of someone amusing who wins, like the most junior person on the sports section or something like that.
Right.
I love the Grand National. I absolutely love it. I'll be gripped to Beecher's Brook and
have you got
when the horses fall over.
Yeah, have you got a particular horse yet that you know of, or have you yet to choose it?
Well, there's what's called Wonder Dream, the one who's ridden by the lady.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
So, as a good feminist, I'm all for the First Lady to win the National.
I totally agree. What happened to the rail strike that was going to wreck the meeting, by the way? That's one of the reasons I didn't go, is because, getting out of here and getting up there, you've got to make sure the trains are running.
It sounds pretty bad. Southern, the bane of all of our lives down south, are also running train lines up round Aintree, and it sounds like it's going to be absolute chaos. Loads of the trains up there are cancelled, so I really feel for someone sitting on a kind of hot platform waiting for the train to arrive.
Eleanor, you will know from experience, by the time everybody gets out of that race course today, they'll be floating. They won't need a train, believe me.
They won't be floating in their brains. I doubt they're going to be floating on their arses as they have to kind of walk miles to the station in their high heels.
Yeah, exactly, they won't notice.
Shocking. Eleanor, listen, lovely to speak to you. Thank you so much.
Thanks,
Eleanor
Eleanor
Mills, editorial director of the Sunday Times there, giving us the heads up on what's coming up in the paper tomorrow. You don't want to miss that. This is TalkSport. Everton, Leicester, you're going to tomorrow, aren't you?
I am indeed, yeah. I'm going up there first thing tomorrow morning. Yeah. And I'm going to see, actually, a pal in Chester.
Are you?
After the game. So
this is not the same pal you saw last time,
it's a group of pals, actually.
Not the one who's given up drinking.
No, he's restarted, so he's amongst company, but he's allowed in this time.
Because you wouldn't want to meet him otherwise, would you? Now, just a quick couple of tweets here. Pete says, for God's sake, Porky, please don't have a punt on Black Lion or Pleasant Company, as I can't be refunded.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry, mate, but
that's
I mean...
Jag Porky jinx.
You just keep listening, and all this myth and nonsense about everything that I tip is a jinx. I think you'll find I've got a very successful record across many different sports.
Yeah. Well, Turner says Porky has a story about himself for everything. He said, when's he going to tell you about the time he rode a Grand National winner?
Well, no. But I mean, we had a few experiences at the Grand National. Mr. Brazil and I used to go up and do the breakfast show there on a Saturday, and it is a momentous sort of artistic and cultural occasion. I have to say, it really is.
Okay.
And I've never, all these ladies, by the way, you know, are pictured, in various stages of bladderation and undress and all that kind of stuff. Of course, there are a few of those. There are a few of those at every race. But the great majority of people I've ever met at the Grand National are really great, go-ahead sort of people who having a day out at the races.
I'm sure. But as you said, by 5 o'clock this afternoon, which is a very late race, there will be very few sober people there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Just getting back for a moment to Julian Lennon.
Yes.
Because, it is the man we must not mention. But as you quite rightly said, amazing to think he's 53.
Yeah.
So he's 16 when his father died. And over the next couple of years, he was totally lost. I tell you, took him under his wing. The publishing friend of ours, John...
Blake.
John Blake, who published my soon-to-be best-selling book, Rooney Tunes.
Soon-to-be what?
It's been revived. It's been revived.
How's it been revived?
Do you know how many Rooney Tunes get sent here each week?
But
you signed one only last week.
Yeah, I know, but
I don't know why they want you to sign. You had nothing to do with that.
I don't know why they want me to sign it either. But that's obviously what the boost of the sales is. So I'm hoping you're going to be giving me half of the sales. So that'll be 50p a copy, won't it?
Well,
they're now going for a quid.
I would.
So that's about 150 I've made.
Yeah,
last week.
I'd keep wishing on that one. But anyway, the point is, John Blake kind of took this guy under his wing, young Julian as he was then, because he was so vulnerable. He was in the world on his own, and the world and his mother were knocking on his door, and people were offering him all sorts of contracts to come and make records because they thought, well, if it's John Lennon's son, it's going to be brilliant and all that kind of stuff, And he really was lost. But anyway, what happened on one occasion, I had to go and cover a court case, a magistrate's court case in somewhere in North Wales, but somewhere very small.
This was at that time, around about sort of mid-80s?
It was in the very early 80s. I would say it was probably about 81.
Okay.
Because John Lennon was shot on December the 9th, 1980.
Yes.
I think this was about a year later.
Okay.
And it was some little place in North Wales. I can't even remember. Yeah, somewhere like that, actually, funny enough, somewhere at Mould. And what had happened was, he had gone out with his mates, just his ordinary mates. This was 6 months after his father died.
Yeah.
And they'd gone into a clearing in a wood, and they'd sat there and they'd smoked a bit of, whatever they were smoking, I don't know. But they got cold. So they took some wood from what they thought was a derelict fence, and they set fire to it and used it as a campfire.
Uh-huh.
They were then charged with criminal damage, believe it or not.
An arson, probably.
An arson, 3 or 4 of them.
Right.
And ridiculously, they appeared in this court case, and the world... And
were you sent to do the case?
I was sent to do the case, because I was working for the Daily Express in Manchester.
Right.
And it was as though the great train robbers had suddenly turned up, you know what I mean? It was so ludicrous.
I know.
But the funniest thing about it was to illustrate how alone he was in the world then without his father... He arrived in a Vauxhall Viva, a beaten-up old Vauxhall Viva, which his mate was driving, right? And then there were no security guards or anything. And we as journalists had to really shadow him and help him into the court and help him out again and all that kind of stuff. He had no protection.
His mother hadn't come or anything?
Well, no, his mother hadn't come, actually. His mother wasn't there.
Right.
He'd come with literally a mate in a car. And he had no idea what he was walking into. And neither did we, to be honest. I mean, but a lot of the journalists there were from overseas. A lot of them from America and all this kind of stuff.
Japan, probably.
That's right. Anyway, he got a conditional discharge. He comes out. And then his mate, who really was trying to do the best for him, they were both 18 at the time. His mate was sitting in the broken down Vauxhall Viva, and what he did was he opened the passenger door and then started revving the engine as Julian was coming out saying, come on, Julian, for the fast getaway.
Yeah.
And Julian came out and he got in the car, and before he'd slammed the door, his mate let the clutch in, put his foot down, and it went bang. The car just blew up. It just blew up, the manifold or whatever it was called. The engine just broke off, and it just went up in a puff of smoke.
Amazing.
And you think about it then and think about it now. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I know, incredible stuff. How about this from Julie, who says this? I love Rupert Bell's description of being bladdered, over-refreshed. I'm sure Mr. Parry will be a little over-refreshed later on.
Oh, and why? Why would that be?
Well, it's Saturday. Why would it be any different?
I may have things to celebrate at the end of the Grand National.
Afternoon? I mean, you'll be watching the Grand National. You still haven't told us.
Yeah, but it's so very late, though, isn't it?
You still haven't told us about your 10 horses, have you?
Well, everybody knows what that's basically.
You told us you were going to say before the end of the show what you were backing.
I didn't. I said before the race I will.
I see.
I will put it out to the world.
You're not going to do it on the radio?
No, I'm not going to do it on the radio. It'll takes too much time, and there's still a bit of thinking to do about my nomination.
So you don't know what you're going to back, basically, do you?
Eh?
You don't know what you're going to back?
There's still a bit of research to do. That's all I can say.
All right. You know what this music means. Time for you to have your little locally based rant about something that only you care about.
Yes.
And lose.
Yes.
Which is what
I'm not going to lose, don't worry.
Although I think did you win it last week?
I did win last week.
So it's 10-4 now, isn't it? 10-4.
It's much more like the 8-5 or something like that.
I need to ask the producer who's not paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is it 10-4 or what? He's not looking, is it? It is 10-4. Yeah. 10-4, breaker.
Right, OK. Well, listen, I normally, I'm so enthusiastic about winning that I go first, but I'm going to allow you to go first this week.
You're going to allow me to go first this week? Well, thank you very much indeed. Would you like to count me down?
I'm going to count you down if our technical staff are ready. 3, 2, 1, clock!
Clock! I've never heard that before. Right, my 1 minute moan is about the terrible, chaotic state of the roads, of the railways, and of every other means of getting around anywhere this weekend. This is the second weekend of the school holidays. Lots of people are trying to get to the Grand National. The roads are going to be absolutely gridlocked around there. And, of course, the railways are on strike, so you won't be able to get anywhere near Liverpool thanks to the disruption of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union, which has managed to make strikes coincide with the walkouts at Northern Rail and Southern as well. Just in case you're trying to drive anywhere, there are roadworks across 34 miles of the A1 in Lincolnshire, 10 miles of the A5 near Rugby and Toaster, 30 miles of the A14 near Rugby and Kettering. So if you're trying to get anywhere this weekend, I wouldn't bother. It's being called by Edmund King, our good friend at the AA, as like driving in and out of a rabbit hole. You will have absolutely no chance. Now, it will come as no surprise to you that I'm going to be one of these people driving. I'm off to the West Country in about 20 minutes' time.
Self-interest.
I don't think it's going to take me more than 2 days to get there. Thank you very much indeed.
Right, okay.
Now, let's hear something from you which does not involve... distinctly average. You say that every week, but I'm winning 10-4.
Yeah.
Let's hear from Mr. Mike Parry, a man for whom self-interest is a national pastime. Start now.
I want to expose a national disgrace. You drive around our beautiful country, it is scarred by all these ridiculous, horrible wind farms. Yeah, that's right, these big white structures, big propellers on the top, spinning round in the wind, but when there's no wind, they don't spin round, OK? Right. They just scar the countryside. But it gets worse than that. Guess what? Now those wind farms are going to be paid to switch their blinking blades off, OK? Switch the blinking blades off and get paid for it. Do you know why? There's too much electricity in the grid and we do not need any more. Let me tell you exactly why. The company expects a minimum daytime demand on the system of 22.7 gigawatts, OK? But 20.8 gigawatts is what is being produced at the moment. We don't need the excess electricity. So those wind farms are utterly and hopelessly useless, should never have been built, too expensive, don't work. We don't need them. Get rid of them. Pull them down now. All of them. That's what I say. Death to the wind farms.
Yeah, keep going.
Yes, death to the wind farms. I haven't run out at all.
Well, there you go. You came up a bit short there.
No, I didn't.
You get maybe points deducted for that.
No.
I suspect I've already won that one.
No,
we'll find out coming up very shortly.
I'm very confident.
This is Talk Sport. Now, I've just been told by our research team that Harry Kane's on the bench.
Well, I told you that about 5 minutes ago.
Well, we looked up at the screen and said, could Harry Kane be on the bench? I didn't think he would be, but I don't know if he's going to get a game. I was told earlier in the week that he'd be ready to play again by next weekend.
Yes.
But if he gets on this weekend, what a boost that will be for Spurs.
It'd be a tremendous boost, but then the problem is always bringing the player back too soon. I mean, Spurs are literally in critical mode because if Chelsea slip, they are the people right behind them who've got to leap on them like a savage and hungry dog and devour them and take that title. So you want to do that with your best players in the team.
A savage and hungry dog?
Yeah, savage and hungry dog.
Thank you for giving us that.
If I was the Spurs boss, I wouldn't bring him on against Watford because I don't think they need to. With no disrespect to Watford.
Well, to be honest,
why not give them another 7 days because they're not playing during the week, are they?
Well, you say that, but I mean, match fitness is what you want as well.
Match fitness is right. You're absolutely right.
So you don't want to just leave him sitting there if he's fit enough to play. Now, a couple of quick tweets for you.
Sure.
Richie says this: the biggest generator of wind in Britain is currently on TalkSport moaning about Britain's wind farms.
Oh yeah. All right.
Patrick says MG wins hands down. Porky as usual, blowing hot air.
No.
11-4.
No. Mine is a national event. Now, what about that other bit of national news that I was going to tell you? Do you want me to tell you?
Well, no, because we're going to go to Alex Crook at White Hart Lane
Good idea.
first. Before that, Alex.
19 minutes gone. Tottenham 0, Watford 0.
There you go. I wonder why
that was a sitter.
That wasn't. That should have been a goal, shouldn't it? Really?
That was
not as bad as old your mate Stones' miss the other day.
Well, he's not my mate.
Well, he used to be.
He's a man
you said he was one of the
her.
greatest players ever to be born, and that he would be probably the greatest defender that England ever had.
I said if he stayed at Everton,
then he went to Manchester City.
If he would have become an £80 million defender, he chose to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
Now then, Stephen, who may be from Hull, but that's his handle, Stephen Hull, says it has to be Porky in the 1 minute moan. I find myself constantly close to tears with the quality of the man of the people and his selections every week.
You don't think he's being ironic?
Of course not. Of course not.
Well, I've got some bad news, not only for Stephen, but also for you.
Yeah.
But the producer has awarded yet again the win to me.
That's rubbish.
It's 11-4.
That's utter rubbish. I
It's
don't know what's wrong with this guy's head, honestly. I mean, you know.
What do you mean, what's wrong with his head?
Well, I mean,
you can't just start slagging people off because they don't like what you've done.
No, the point is, wind farms are a scar on this country. What you were going on about has been...
Where's the nearest wind farm?
Where's
the nearest wind farm?
What you've been going on about has been a problem for the last 10 years.
Yeah, but it's this weekend.
Oh, you know, we
relevant.
have transport infrastructure problems in Britain.
It's relevant to this weekend.
Well, why is it relevant?
Because everybody's currently trying to get somewhere and they can't.
Well, how come I came in on a train this morning and even though it was an RMT strike...
As long as you're all right, Jack.
The train companies...
As long as you're okay.
The train companies have managed to get across it.
Yeah, as long as you're fine, Jack.
Anyway,
don't worry about it.
Let's get rid of that
Where's
rubbish
the nearest
news.
wind farm?
The nearest wind farm is somewhere down the A3. Now then, I'm going to tell you about a bit of news which people have been waiting for, which will enlighten them and fill them with joy.
Will it? Well, you're quitting again.
I'm not going to respond to such childish gibberish.
Sorry, go on.
My chair has been found.
Your chair's been found.
My chair's been
Brilliant.
found.
Congratulations.
Where is
it?
It's at the upholsterers.
Even my son, who's sitting here, right, is absolutely overjoyed at that news.
That's right.
You are overjoyed at that news, aren't you? You can say yes. Yeah, go.
Yeah,
he's very happy.
Not only has it been found, it is to be returned next Tuesday.
What sort of state is it in?
It's been repaired.
It hasn't been being used by a tramp somewhere down in sort of Sutton Common.
No, it's been repaired and renovated. The chap who took it out when I was in a bit of a daze last week, and
you didn't say you were in a daze.
Well, I was very busy.
You weren't thinking straight.
No, I was busy.
Just for people who didn't know the story, I'll quickly recap. Okay. Some guy turns up at your door.
That's right.
You don't know who he is.
No.
Nevertheless, you open the door. He claims to be an upholsterer, even though he has no upholstery tools with him.
Yeah.
He comes in, has a look at the chair, without talking to you, picks up the chair, asks you to help him out the door with it, walks down the stairs with it, and says, "See you later,"
and disappears.
And that was about 2 weeks ago.
And this is a chair that cost about £1,000.
700, you said.
Well, I said 700, but it's much more than that.
Why has it gone up?
Well, only because you put the fear of God into me, and I thought I was going to have to replace it. I actually went looking for a replacement chair.
Yeah.
And they do cost up to £1,000.
Really?
For the same model. So,
you were done.
But anyway, I got a call yesterday about sort of 5 o'clock or something like that.
Okay.
Hello, Mike. I said, who's this?
Is this Alf? Or somebody else?
No, his name's not Alf, definitely not.
Right.
I said, no.
Alf and safety.
He said, it's your chair. I said, my chair? I said, have you... I kind of said, have you found it? Because, he said, what do you mean if I found it? I've been repairing it for the last week.
Like it's got your name and address on it. And if you find this chair, please ring this number.
That's right, yeah. So, anyway, he said, I've got to, Anyway, the point is, I've got a few things to do early next week. So, it's been returned next Tuesday afternoon.
Brilliant. And how much is he going to charge you for this?
I haven't asked. I didn't ask.
So hang on a minute. So you let the guy walk out with your chair.
Yeah.
You let him keep the chair for a significant period of time.
That's right.
And you don't actually ask him how much he's going to bill you when he returns.
No. Because it doesn't matter. If I get it back, it's it's like if your child was kidnapped and asked for a ransom, would you ask what the price was?
Yeah, I think I would, because that would be important.
Oh, would you? And if it was too much, you'd say, no, keep them.
Yeah, I would actually, yeah.
They're ridiculous.
I certainly do that if they took you hostage.
Oh, yeah, sure.
How much do you want for him?
Look at this.
More than a couple of quid?
Already, I've only announced this news a few seconds ago. Already, Luke says, it's back. I'm delighted for you, Porky. It's wonderful news. Look, the nation's celebrating. Isn't it fantastic?
Astonishing, yeah. Freddie says this, but I'm not going to read out in its entirety. He's quite rude. He says, I think the record number of literallys have run out of Porky's mouth today.
Oh, yeah?
I thought he was giving up saying that word.
Yeah, I'm giving it up. Stephen from Hull is in fact Stephen Hull. That's his surname, okay? And he says, just to let you guys know...
He's from Belfast.
Yes, thank you very much for messaging us. My name is Steve Hull, and I'm from Belfast. Belfast. Yeah. The place where you guys won't do a live show. Look, it's not that we won't do a live show, I promise you. Oh, by the way, Steve makes another observation.
Yeah.
Clearly the producer is in MG's pocket. I bet he helps MG marry and gerrymander the quiz as well. Porky's being cheated on all the time.
Well, that's where
Stephen
has once again got it completely wrong, because the producer of this show has nothing to do with the Porky quiz, which is on another show.
Well, you say so. I
do say that. Jane says this, and she's also Jane, of course, with the tattoo, so you wouldn't want to know what she thinks, but she says wind farms don't create half as much hot air as old Porky.
Yeah, well, I don't take that lightly either. Now, we often talk about Cornwall because that's a part of the world where they...
You say everyone in Cornwall's a weirdo.
I didn't say that.
You did say that.
No, I haven't. I've said that they are a different sort of culture to the rest of the country.
Weirdos.
I didn't say they were weirdos. Anyway, the point of the story is that they often want to seek independence and they want protection for the Cornish language. Apparently only about 63 people in the whole of Cornwall and Devon speak Cornish.
63?
Yeah, apparently.
Are you sure that's an accurate number?
Well, yeah.
I don't think it is.
But guess what I found out now from one of my historical novels?
One of your historical novels?
Historical journals, I'm sorry. I do read historical novels.
Slip. What was the last one you read?
The Pillars of the Earth.
That's the only one you've ever read.
It is, actually, yeah. But nevertheless,
it's not a historical novel either.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic.
It's a Ken Follett book, isn't it?
Yeah, Ken Follett. But
isn't that sort of set in the modern times?
No, it's in the Middle Ages, honestly. It's fantastic.
Oh.
It's about building cathedrals and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, what I found out is that Cornwall hope to boost their wealth, because there ain't much wealth in Cornwall.
Well, the tin mines have sort of run out.
They've all run out, and so have all the other mines. It's the only county in the whole of the UK that doesn't have a league football team.
Oh, yeah.
So there's not a lot going on there, apart from the obviously holiday business, the tourist industry.
Tourism, yeah.
However, they are apparently, I'm told, trying to establish direct links with the Cayman Islands, which is one of the richest areas of land.
It's an offshore banking hotbed, isn't it?
But they say that the guy who founded the Cayman Islands was...
Mr. Cayman?
No, a Mr. Borden.
Borden?
Borden.
What do they call it, the Borden Islands?
No, well, exactly, who came from Bodden in Cornwall.
Bodden?
He left in the 17th century.
Do you mean Bodmin?
No, Bodden.
Bodden.
And he sailed with Cromwell's Marines to fight in the Anglo-Spanish War, but he never got there.
Oh, right.
And he ended up on the Cayman
Islands.
Plank. Yeah, that's right, yeah. So the Cayman government is now beginning a search for its Cornish links.
Oh, yeah.
And obviously the hope in Cornwall...
Links to organised crime.
Well, no, the hope in Cornwall is that, the wealth of the Cayman Islands will in some way be perhaps applicable to Cornwall Cornwall...
they're hoping to get a handout.
Yeah. Well, not a handout, but some sort of, recognition of being the founders of the Cayman Islands, and therefore...
Well, they're not going to get any money out of that, are they?
Well, I think the hope of a body of people in Cornwall is that the Cayman Islands and Cornwall will become one. You see what I mean?
Okay.
And therefore, it's a bit like when West Germany...
Well, they call them the Cornwall Islands. Maybe that would be the
I'll get to that in a minute.
We haven't got a minute.
It's a bit like the... West Germany and East Germany, when they joined up, West Germany very wealthy, East Germany poverty-stricken peasants, but now they've all got the same. And I think Cornwall are hoping that they might have some sort of merger, albeit a few thousand miles apart, with the Cayman Islands.
Do you realise you've wasted about 3 minutes on that story?
No, it's absolutely true. I'm telling you, it's underway as we speak.
Yeah, rubbish. Here's one from Laura to finish the show, and I think this sums up the 2 hours we've just done perfectly.
Yes.
The reason MG won the 1 minute moan, Porky, was his was good and yours was crap. Fact.
Oh, that's very nice, isn't it?
This is Talk Sport.
On DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The warm-up with the two mics on Talk